Today let's explore the press handstand. Now there's lots of different variations of the press. There's the strength element, the balance element, the flexibility and the skill element. I'm going to go through all those today. But first let's go through those different variations. So we have the straddle press. So that's a standing position, coming up onto tiptoes, passing through straddle, finishing in your handstand. We then have the pike press, exactly the same, but now the legs stay together. So in that position, come forwards, tiptoes, up to handstand, back down the way you came. Then we have planche press to handstand, so using a bit more grunt, a little bit more muscle. So taking the shoulders forwards, hips staying low, and then from there, I push up. Now that can obviously be done in harder variations of the planche, depending on what level you have, but the big difference is that lower hip position. Combining that lower hip position and the straddle is the shoulder press. Now that would normally be done off the floor if you have the flexibility, but if I'm not warmed up, I need my hands elevated to go from this straddle position up to the handstand position. Be careful of the ceiling, and then back down the way you came, finish in that straddle L-sit. We then have the tuck press to handstand. Now again, you can play around with that hip height position, so you could stay nice and high with it in that position, bring the knees in or the heels to the butt, and then go up to your handstand, back down, or you could start and finish with a lower hip position. But the idea with that one is you're just passing through the tuck position. And then we have the bent arm version. Now normally that's done between P-bars or boxes or stools like this. So you have your hands elevated, you start maybe in an L-sit position, but it can also be done in that standing position. Come through, arms are bent as I come up to my handstand, and then back down the way you went up, back to your L-sit. So there's 6 main variations, but you can obviously have variations of them and hybrids between them. But these same 4 concepts work for all of them. So as we improve our balance and our flexibility, we're going to create more efficiency through those positions. We're going to be able to bang out more repetitions or just be able to unlock the drill. The strength side is going to do exactly the same thing. It's just going to allow us to slow everything down and play and have some room for error. If anything, makes the movements a little bit more ugly, but that's the reason that I just got all of those presses without a warm-up. And then the skill, these are the drills, these are the exercises that we should be doing to make the thing better. So for the flexibility, we need to be increasing our forward fold. We need to be able to getting our hands past our toes. So the bigger this range, so the deeper you can get down there, the easier it's going to be to lift the feet up this direction. So if I'm struggling to do this, I'm going to have to do this to try and press, which the further I go that way, the more strength I need to use. So the deeper the forward fold, the easier it's going to be to get the feet off the floor. Our straddle is exactly the same as the pike position, but it's more specific towards the shoulder press and the straddle press itself, because that's what we need to pass through on the way up, and or the shoulder press where we need to start in this position. So having that flexibility range is just going to make things much, much easier, way more efficient, and you're not going to have to use so much strength. So just make sure you're starting with good exercises for you. So if you're in this position, raise those hips up if you need to. Don't be sitting in a position like this. Don't go to extremes on day one and put a big 20K plate on your back and expect to go flat without hurting yourself. So make sure you're picking levels and progressions of the stretches that work for your body type and your current level. Now, having good spinal mobility, so allowing your body to move and articulate through the spine, is going to be really important for the press eccentrics and concentrics, where we come up and down and we have to round through the back as we go through the pathway. That way we're not having to move in straight lines, which sticks the lever arms out really far. So open and closing through the segments of your spine is really, really important to get a clean, efficient press handstand. And then once you have a range to work with, doing compression work, both in the straddle position, in the pike position, is going to help you to create strength and conditioning and strength through a range of motion. Now, in terms of balance, we're familiar with overbalance and underbalance in a static straight handstand. So if I'm in this position, we know that overbalance is this way falling out, and then underbalance is this way, having control in this position and not falling down. So how much can I move this way? How much can I move that way? We call that the window of balance, the distance you can move without falling. And we have that same balance component at the top of the press handstand and the bottom and the pathway. So I need to be able to hold in the middle of my balance window here without overbalancing or underbalancing. I need to be able to hold any way through the pathway or anywhere through the pathway, and also be able to hold in that top position in that handstand. So hanging out in those positions, getting time under tension there, doing specific exercises that target those areas is really important. Now the specific strength that you need is going to be dependent on the other factors, so how good your balance is, how good your flexibility is, and also which progression you're working towards of the press. But if we can work to something like a tuck planche and have this strength to be able to hold this position, then press handstanding is relatively easy from a strength point of view. So I recommend most people that are working press handstand are also working to at least a tuck planche. We also need to have the strength in the shoulders to be able to open and close that position. So what I mean by that is this is open shoulder position, this is closed shoulder position. Here, it counterbalances my legs coming down when I do the press, and then I need to be able to open back up again to get back to my straight handstand at the top. And having the strength in the hips and the arms is going to help take the load. So here, if I want to lift the feet, I could bend the arms and now I can lift the feet. Now I need to be able to open and close the hip. Open and close the hip from a standing position and in a handstand is going to be very useful, especially if I'm lacking some flexibility. And then most importantly, we need to know the drills, the skills, the exercises that we need to work on to get better at the skill of the press handstand. So the two main ones that I use is the eccentric, so the going down, and the partial range, so the going up, but only through the range that you can do. When you add those two together, you're getting full range of motion both on the eccentric, and then you're getting the partial range concentric that will slowly get bigger and bigger to complete the press. So there's no gap in your press handstand training. Now most people, when they're doing those, will need some sort of wall assistance. So we'll be coming up to the wall here. We could do the range of motion for the shoulders, building that strength and the control and the conditioning in the shoulder position. Now notice I've externally rotated the hands. We don't want to be too hard on the wrists in this position. I want to learn to go in and out of that position, eventually getting the back and the shoulders there. Now I can come down through the pathway of the press handstand that I'm going for. I can try and get to the floor in one motion, and then when I'm there, tickle the floor, and then come back out. So that's the full range of motion eccentric using the wall. Most people aren't going to be able to go up from that position for the concentric, so we need to use a partial range to start with. So that's where we use boxes or steps. We go back into that position. I can have my toes raised up, so now I'm doing a partial range press, and then at the top I push off. So I'm getting the eccentric, full range of motion, concentric, partial range. And then over time, I decrease the height of that step until I get to the floor. So the most common way of assisting yourself with the drills for the press handstand is using the wall, but there's other variations you can do using the band. You can have a spotter. So the band is really good for stall to work. So you can do something like this, have it around here. Now, if I pull it up nice and high, I'll be able to get up into my straddle L position. Now I can push through without those toes dragging, and then hopefully be able to get back down again. Now obviously there's a prerequisite for doing a drill like this, but just find the levels or progressions that fit your current ability, your flexibility, your strength and your balance. Embrace your strengths and work on your weaknesses. Enjoy the journey and you'll get that press handstand. Let me know if you have any requests for videos, requests for my app. Links are down in the description if you need them. Comment away, thumbs up is appreciated, it really helps the channel, and I'll speak to you on the next one.